Discovered. The incredible truth behind $6 for 3 Apache women who defied all expectations. Maya shifted uncomfortably in her chair at the diner, the familiar smell of greasy food mixing with her own faded hopes. As the lunch rush buzzed around her, she could feel the weight of every judgmental glance from the patrons seated around her. Her fingers danced over the intricate beadwork tucked safely in her bag, a secret reminder of her dreams. Just outside those doors lay a world where her craft could flourish. Yet here she sat, serving burgers and fries to customers who saw her only as a stereotype, a mere waitress, bound to the expectations thrust upon her by her heritage. This was not what her ancestors had envisioned for a proud Apache woman. Fatigue clawed at her, leaving her too weary to battle the conflicting emotions raging inside her: humiliation, yearning, and an undercurrent of defiance. Her dreams of showcasing her beadwork seemed as distant as the mountains on the horizon. Eleanor, peeling potatoes in the kitchen, shared Maya's frustrations, but had her own aspirations cloaked in desperation. Each night she buried herself in nursing textbooks, desperate to raise the bar above her current reality. The thought of healing her community fueled her determination, but self-doubt wrestled with that fire. Could she really secure a future as a nurse? Or would she be forever trapped in the cycle of poverty that her family had known for generations? The sound of knives scraping against cutting boards filled the silence around her, a constant reminder of the limitations of their lives and the risk that pitted her against her family's expectations. As she absent-mindedly peeled, her mind raced with fears of failure, her thoughts tangled in the relentless pressure to succeed. Grace, the youngest, listened keenly to the directives of Maya and Elena, often feeling invisible in the chaos of their lives. She longed to share the stories passed down through generations, the rich heritage of vibrant Apache tales that pulsed with life. In moments when no one was looking, she scribbled fragments of stories on napkins, the words often drowned out by the clatter of plates and laughter echoing down the diner. With each story lost to the noise, her heart sank deeper into the shadow of insignificance. Could she find a way to preserve their culture through her words when it felt as though they had little impact on the world around them? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Maya's thoughts abruptly shifted when she stumbled upon an old document at her grandmother's house, an injustice meticulously hidden within the confines of its faded paper, a recounting of racial bias that had plagued her family's history. The revelation hit her like a gust of wind. The disclosure of that painful truth sparked a fire inside her that demanded attention. How could they expect her to remain silent and compliant during such an affront? The very man who had continuously overlooked her family's narrative, that same figure of authority lingering in the shadows of their small town, now loomed larger than life in her mind's eye, a symbol of everything that had stifled her people for decades. With her heart racing and a lump forming in her throat, she knew she could no longer avoid the confrontation. The voices of doubt from her family echoed in her ears, creating a cacophony that threatened to drown her courageous impulses. Could her anger transform into action, or would she forever remain voiceless, a mere shadow of what could have been? The air thickened with tension as the women prepared for a journey that could either challenge the status quo or cement their fates as they were. Maya felt the pressure building, straining against the oppressive walls the world had constructed around them. Would the glory of their Apache heritage rise to the surface, or would their dreams shrivel in the face of skepticism? The uncertainty washed over her, wrapping itself around her like a cloak, leaving her trembling at the brink of the unknown. Would they dare to confront a legacy of suppression and rewrite their own destiny? The question hung heavily, a beacon calling them toward inevitable confrontation. Maya sat at her kitchen table, the small window framing her view of the world outside. Sunlight spilled onto the table, illuminating the document she had unearthed, a record of her family's struggle against prejudice that had spanned generations. The words danced before her eyes, pulsing with a life of their own, as they echoed with the voices of her ancestors. She could feel their whispers, urging her to rise, to reclaim their narrative in the face of all that had suppressed it. The fire ignited within her, pushing away the lethargy that had once held her captive. As she studied the faded ink, the anger surged again, a deep-rooted wish to confront the person who had wielded his authority like a blade against her family. For too long, she had accepted her role as the passive observer, the complacent daughter bearing the weight of societal expectations. But this was different. The hurt of the past had morphed into determination, fueling her thoughts. Could she gather the courage to speak out? This very document needed to be seen, to be weaponized against the injustices they faced. Elena entered the room, her hands still fragrant with traces of potatoes. She paused, noticing Maya's furrowed brow. "What's wrong?" she asked, concern etching her features. "Wrong? Nothing is wrong. Everything is right," Maya replied, a spark igniting in her eyes. "I found something about our family's history, something powerful." Elena's curiosity piqued, and she leaned closer, scanning the text. As she read, her jaw tightened. So they thought they could just erase us? It needs to be shared. But how? Maya's resolve solidified. She hadn't just uncovered a document. She had unearthed a mission. "We need to create something that brings our stories to light. Not just this, but everything. Our craft, our heritage, our voices." Elena nodded slowly, the familiar fear to follow their own dreams creeping into her thoughts. "I'm still not sure. My family expects me to just get a job and stop dreaming. What if I fail?" "Failure is better than never trying," Maya stated, fierceness rising. "We cannot let their expectations define who we are. There's a whole community waiting to hear our stories, to see our art." Grace, overhearing their conversation from the doorway, found her voice tremulous but firm. "What if we have a showcase? We can bring in all our beadwork, and I could tell the stories I write. It could be our way of beginning a conversation." The idea hung in the air, heavy with possibility. Maya felt a rush of excitement, but tempered by apprehension. Could they really do this? It felt like a leap into an abyss where the only route was the trail they would blaze themselves. They spiraled into brainstorming and making plans, an exhilarating dance of words and ideas that left Maya glowing. She sketched elaborate patterns and motifs, sketching the stories woven into her beadwork. Elena began researching nursing scholarships, her focus sharpening amidst the chaos. Grace's napkins transformed from mere jotting into rough drafts of captivating narratives that demanded to be shared. However, just as they found a rhythm, doubt began creeping back into Maya's mind like a shadow. What if they reached out and the response was silence, or worse, derision? As they wrapped up for the day, Maya held her head high, channeling the strength of her ancestors. "Let's confront the world together," she said, determination thick in her voice. "Is it too much to ask?" she wondered privately as doubts coiled around her thoughts. What if the weight of their dreams became too heavy to hold? The questions chased her as she lingered over unremarkable moments, trying to forge a path into the tangible unknown while battling the specter of their unyielding past. The next morning, the three women made a pact of silence, bolstered still by courage. But tension bubbled beneath the surface, a reminder that confronting the past can often lead to unraveled truths that they weren't ready to face. The very foundation they aimed to build sat on the brink of exposure, and as Maya stared out the window once more, she wondered, would they rise or fall? The journey had begun, but the moment of truth still loomed ahead. Would they have the strength to push through the looming skepticism, or would their dreams collapse under the weight of expectation? Maya awoke the next morning with a mix of excitement and anxiety swirling through her. At breakfast, she observed her surroundings with newfound clarity, the chipped plates, the subtle fragrance of brewed coffee, all reminders of a modest life. Yet the echoes of her family's past resonated more profoundly now, pulsing through her veins as she clutched the document. It was as if every artifact in the kitchen whispered secrets that begged to be uncovered. Determination coursed through her as she understood that she could no longer shy away from engaging with her roots. She knew she had to take decisive steps towards sharing their story. Picking up her phone, she opened her notes app and scrolled down ideas for their showcase. Myriad thoughts stirred. How could they present not just the essence of their heritage, but also the raw realities of their experiences? Gradually, her thoughts collected around a vision. They would not merely display their crafts. Instead, it would be an experience, a journey into their lineage. Maya envisioned creating an immersive atmosphere where each bead and stitch told a tale, interwoven with personal narratives about resilience and transformation. Yet with each notion, doubt flickered in her mind. Would they have enough time? Would anyone truly care? Elena entered the kitchen, pulling Maya from her reverie. "Are you ready for today?" she asked, her voice revealing equal measures of apprehension and enthusiasm. "We have to begin today," Maya replied, her own voice steadying her resolve. "Let's draft a plan. We need to reach out to local artists and explore possibilities for collaboration. Their stories paired with ours could elevate the entire showcase." As they gathered their materials, Maya observed Elena's hands tremble slightly as she sorted through art supplies. "Are you nervous?" "Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to make art in seclusion, but sharing it, that feels monumental." Elena's candidness made Maya realize they were both grappling with fear, the fear of vulnerability that paved the path toward authenticity. "Let's leverage that fear," Maya proposed, a spark igniting in her eyes. "Every artist experiences it. What if we shared our own fears during the showcase? If we go first, that could draw others in. It might just resonate with them." Elena nodded, a flicker of intrigue reflecting in her gaze. "Not just art, but the power behind it," she mused. "People connect through struggle. It feels more real." Emboldened by their conversation, Maya set her sights on the day ahead. They would visit the community center, and together they would outline their vision to engage with other artists. Each step towards connection filled Maya's heart with an amalgam of excitement and trepidation. Yet, like the steady drip of a leaky faucet, doubts loomed again. The nagging thought of the naysayers who had always stood against her aspirations crept into her mind. Past experiences where her ideas had been dismissed echoed dangerously close. But this time felt different. She could no longer allow fear to dictate her narrative. As they approached the community center, Maya felt her heart hammering against her ribs. The exterior bore the scars of a forgotten history, yet it still stood resilient, much like her own family. With each step, she embraced her ancestors' determination. Inside the center, they were greeted by a swirl of bustling people. Local artists adorned the walls displaying colorful creations, each bustling with potential stories unfolding. Almost instinctively, Maya straightened her back, amplifying her resolve. She and Elena moved among the exhibits, soaking in the creativity, the shared experience of countless artists before them. Yet still, a nagging uncertainty loitered. After a few minutes, they approached a group of artists chatting animatedly. Mia took a deep breath. Now was her moment. She spoke up, forging connections. "We're putting together a showcase centered on personal stories and heritage, and we'd love for you to collaborate with us." The initial conversation flowed with natural warmth, yet Maya noticed a slight shift in energy as some of the group members exchanged glances. Doubt snaked back into her consciousness. Were they intrigued or skeptical? Could they embrace vulnerability as she did? As they left the community center, Maya felt energized, yet that lingering skepticism whispered in her ear once more. What if their fears, instead of connecting them, dismantled everything they hoped to create? Standing outside in the evening light, Maya stared down the street, the once clear vision becoming blurred by the uncertainties brewing within her. The air hung heavy with the tension of unspoken fears, and she couldn't shake the feeling that the hardest battles were yet to come. What if their dreams of storytelling only served to highlight their fragility? Would the showcase elevate them or expose their insecurities? The battle for authenticity raged within as she wondered, could this venture be the turning point that defined them? Or would it merely reflect their limitations? Maya woke the next morning, the weight of her aspirations heavy on her mind. She lay there, body still in bed, staring at the ceiling, a canvas filled with thoughts, dreams, and doubt. There was no denying that yesterday's encounters had sparked something inside her, yet the uncertainty of what came next gnawed at her like an uninvited guest. She swung her legs over the edge of the bed, feeling the cool floorboards beneath her feet, a reminder of the tangible world awaiting her. There was work to do. Today, she would refine her vision, even if the clarity she sought continued to elude her. Instead of merely crafting a narrative, she wished to expose the deepest fears and triumphs of her lineage. After breakfast, she settled at her desk, a sanctuary crammed with remnants of creativity. She envisioned it as a gathering of voices echoed through time. With a pen in hand, she feverishly scribbled ideas, doubts swirling like autumn leaves around her. Every thought about the showcase ignited fresh inspiration, yet simultaneously reignited her fears. Would it be enough? Elena's reassurance the previous day had been welcome, but doubt remained. Maya was aware that sharing their stories would require more than courage. It demanded a raw authenticity that she hadn't embraced fully before. The realization washed over her, and with it came a compulsion to turn inward. She grabbed a fresh sheet of paper and began to jot down her own fears, every self-doubt spilling onto the page like ink. What if people laugh? What if I'm not credible? What if I'm not worthy to share this story? Yet, as she penned each fear, she danced along the precipice of personal growth. Each line transformed her hesitations into potential stepping stones. Maybe vulnerability could transform their narratives into something transcendent. What if that very anxiety she felt could serve as an invitation rather than a barricade? Maya decided to approach other artists not just for collaboration. Today, she would invite them into her world, sharing her aspirations and fears during their next meeting. She was beginning to learn the power of honesty and creativity, to reveal the struggles behind the artistry. As the afternoon sun dipped low, Maya and Elena reconvened. "I've been thinking," Maya began, as Elena scratched notes beside her. "What if, during our discussions with the other artists, we share not just our project, but also the vulnerabilities we uncovered?" Elena paused, brow furrowed. "You mean like a confession?" "Not just a confession, but an opening," Maya clarified. "If I tell them about my insecurities, it might allow them to express their own. It could create a deeper dialogue." Understanding flickered in Elena's eyes. "We could shift the narrative from showcasing art to showcasing what art needs, our fears, our transformations. It's about the journey, not the destination." With a fresh perspective, they set out once more. Maya's heart raced as they prepared to meet a few aspiring artists at a local cafe, a setting steeped in warmth, creativity, and conversations. The air was thick with potential as they walked through the door. What if this sharing would not only connect them, but also empower others in the room? What if vulnerability transcended fear? It was a gamble, one that demanded an imbalance between hope and apprehension. In this moment, she chose hope. As they approached the gathering, she peered into the faces around her. Each person reflected a different story, a myriad of experiences. Would they resonate with hers? Would they require her to dig deeper, to reveal more than she had ever been willing? Maya felt her palms dampen as they reached the table, but the determination firmly rooted in her heart propelled her forward. She opened her mouth, ready to invite them in, ready to blend her narrative into theirs. A moment lingered in the air, dense with anticipation, and she realized that this was the very essence she had sought, a transformation rooted in authenticity. But as she prepared to speak, her heart raced. Could she stay true to these revelations? The first word slipped out, but she wasn't entirely sure. The struggle would prove more daunting than she had anticipated, yet with every heartbeat she felt resolution solidifying within her being. What awaited her? The unknown consequences of her decision to bare her soul. Would articulating her truth elevate her, or would it simply expose further fragility? As she began to share, the sound of her voice barely masking the flicker of doubt beneath the surface hinted that the next chapter of her journey was just beginning, and she wasn't yet prepared for what lay ahead. Maya's voice wavered as she began sharing her story, the words tumbling out in tentative phrases that barely skimmed the surface of what she felt inside. The fear clawed at her, but within the tremors of vulnerability, she sensed something shifting in the air. A small murmured acknowledgement from Elena gave her the strength to continue. She spoke of her uncertainties and dreams, her voice weaving through the space like a thread stitching together disparate pieces of fabric. As she relayed her experiences, she watched as the artists around her leaned in, their faces reflecting a spectrum of emotions. Curiosity, empathy, recognition. They were responding, and Maya could feel the energy of connection unfurling like petals beneath the sun. But as she shared, self-doubt lingered at the back of her mind. Was she enough to speak for her lineage? Was her truth worthy of being heard? Despite the warmth of the moment, those questions pierced through the layers of courage she was trying to wrap around herself. Yet the shifts in their expressions fed her resolve. They were leaning into her vulnerability, and with their engagement, the atmosphere thickened with a shared understanding. Maya glanced around and found encouraging smiles, eyes sparkling not with judgment, but with a hunger for the authenticity she was offering. In that instant, she realized her story was not just a narrative of fear. It was an honest expression of her journey, a patchwork quilt of her family's legacy, and her own path towards self-acceptance. She turned to Elena, who nodded encouragingly, signaling that they were in this moment together. As Maya concluded, a breathless silence followed her last words, and she could scarcely believe that she had bared herself so openly before a group of strangers. "Thank you for sharing that," one of the artists finally spoke up, breaking the silence. "I've never thought about expressing my own story that way, yet it makes so much sense." Maya felt a flicker of triumph ignite within her, a spark bringing light to the corners of her insecurities. They began to share their own stories, layering raw emotions over Maya's bold opening. Secrets spilled like ink from a spilled pen, difficult childhoods, career struggles, dreams deferred, and the shadows that accompanied their artistry. Each narrative echoed parts of hers, intricately interwoven, revealing how shared vulnerability could form bonds thicker than blood. The cafe's ambient chatter faded into the background as they delved deeper into their experiences, Maya guiding them with gentle questions that encouraged more revelations. She had started as a contributor to her lineage's tale. Now she was becoming its advocate, a storyteller rooted in authenticity. Yet amid her burgeoning confidence, a shadowed thought loomed large. What would happen when the thrill of this moment faded? Would they still carry the courage to uphold the sacredness of their stories? Maya realized they were teetering on the edge of something significant. Each person involved now had the responsibility to honor the vulnerability shared in that space. They were no longer just artists, but caretakers of something beautiful and delicate, the collective authenticity of their struggles. As the gathering began to wind down, Maya sensed the importance of maintaining the connection they'd forged. A lingering excitement thrummed in her chest, yet the responsibilities of such newfound alliance sparked a deep curiosity. "Maybe we should continue this," she proposed, her voice stronger, steadier now. "What if we documented our stories, not just individually but together, creating something that showcases our journey of transformation?" A murmur of agreement rippled through the group, but a wave of anxiety gripped her. What if they didn't follow through? What if, in the chaos of life, such raw openness became another forgotten moment? Standing at this crossroads of fear and possibility, Maya faced the challenge of calling them to action. The tension in her chest tightened with the weight of the decision ahead. Could she galvanize the artistic integrity woven through their shared truths into something substantial? As the cafe emptied, Maya looked into each face that had shared with her, eyes glistening with newfound promise and trepidation. This was just the beginning, but looking down the path, she sensed the depth of the exploration still ahead. The question unfurled in her mind, a challenge and an invitation all at once. Would she have the courage to transform their converged narratives into a resonant testimony that would transcend their fears? Maya awoke the next day with her heart thundering in her chest, the echo of shared stories still reverberating in her mind. There was something raw and exhilarating about the knowledge that she had facilitated a connection among artists who bore scars as heavy as hers. Yet a tight knot of anxiety lingered as she considered the task ahead. How could they channel their collective vulnerability into something greater than the sum of their parts? The city was just waking up, sunlight spilling over asphalt as she stepped onto the street, the world tinged with possibility. Still, self-doubt gnawed at her. Would the others still feel the same sense of commitment, or would it dissolve amid their busy lives? She paced to the local library, the gravity of her intentions anchoring her thoughts. Perhaps bringing them together in a more structured way could solidify their collective commitment. They needed a plan, something tangible to capture their voices and honor their narratives. Arriving at a quiet corner of the library, Maya sat down at a table. She grabbed a pencil and paper, allowing her instincts to flow. Each idea felt like a brick being laid into a wall of purpose. Perhaps they could create a zine or a small publication, a physical testament to their stories and artistry. Names began to toggle through her mind as she scribbled, Elena, Jorge, Amina. Each name represented a treasure trove of experiences waiting to be unearthed. And then the questions rose, sharp and demanding. What format would resonate most? How could they ensure that each voice was not just present but heard? The drive to respect each artist's individuality while weaving them into an overall narrative felt like walking a tightrope, a balancing act between collaboration and personal expression. Her pencil scratched fiercely against the paper, outlining potential themes. The struggles of identity, the determination to rise above challenges, and the beauty found in pain, all facets of their combined journeys. This would not just be an anthology of woes, it could become a source of empowerment and healing. An unexpected fire ignited within her as she sketched her vision. This wasn't just another project to pile on their plates. This was an opportunity to lay bare the magnitude of their experiences. It was worth the risk, worth the vulnerability needed to share. With that thought, she realized she needed to reach out now, before their shared excitement waned. Maya hurriedly typed a message to the group, her fingers dancing over the keys. Hi everyone, I've been thinking about our meeting yesterday and believe we have something really special here. I'd love to gather together again and brainstorm how we could document our stories, creating a publication that embodies our journeys and speaks to who we are as artists. Let's make this real. Pressing send, a wave of relief washed over her, quickly followed by a wave of apprehension. What if they didn't respond? What if her enthusiasm fell flat? A voice of doubt echoed within her, contrasting against the thrill of possibility that had burgeoned since yesterday. As she waited for replies, a thought intruded. What if apprehension led to paralysis? What if the fear of failure overshadowed the courage she had uncovered? Maya had already faced her uncertainties, embraced her narrative. It was time to apply that growth to this new venture. Moments stretched into hours. Finally, responses cascaded into her inbox, each reply igniting her hope. They were just as excited, eager to contribute, to share in this collective endeavor. But deep down, she felt a swell of responsibility. Their stories would be delicate, precious things, and she could not let her fears overshadow their light. The task was daunting and empowering, but the stakes had shifted. This was not merely about her own development anymore. It was about ensuring each voice uplifted the collective whole. With determination, Maya stood up from the table and walked outside, the sun warming her face. The next meeting loomed ahead, and though nerves cracked through her resolve, she knew they were heading to a pivotal moment. Could she truly lead them into this transformation, ensuring everyone's story was heard in an authentic, unfiltered manner? The answer lay just beyond the horizon of their next gathering, and as she walked forward, each step felt like a giant leap toward embracing the complexities of their combined truths. Maya arrived at the coffee shop, the anticipated meeting spot buzzing with the morning rush. The aroma of fresh coffee mingled with the soft murmurs of patrons, creating a world where vulnerability could blossom into something palpable. She took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts as she scanned the room for familiar faces. What awaited her today was more than just a gathering. It resembled a profound promise, a potential revelation that could redefine their collective artistry. As her friends trickled in one by one, excitement shimmered beneath her apprehension. Elena, vibrant despite the late hour, settled into her chair, her presence bringing an undeniable energy. Jorge and Amina followed suit, their eyes glinting with inspiration. Maya felt a flicker of warmth. They were all here, together, and ready to delve into the essence of their work and experiences. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice steady despite the tremor of her heart. "I think we're on the brink of creating something genuinely transformative. Our stories matter, and together we can document them in a way that resonates deeply with others." As she spoke, Maya watched their faces, searching for signs of engagement or doubt. Each nod, each encouraging smile ignited her courage. She introduced the idea of a publication, detailing her vision of a zine that would showcase not just artworks or poems, but raw narratives, pieces of their lives woven into a tapestry of authenticity. "I know it'll require honesty," she conceded, nearly choking on the words. "And that can be uncomfortable. But I believe that discomfort may lead us to a truth we all need to explore. A truth that could empower not just us, but others who feel the same. Jorge shifted slightly, his serious brow furrowing. What if we expose ourselves too much? What if our scars become vulnerabilities that someone might exploit? His question hovered in the air, and Maya's pulse quickened. It was a valid point, a genuine concern she hadn't fully considered. She took a moment, internalizing the weight of his words. Could they risk revealing more than they intended? What you're saying is important, Maya replied, her tone measured. This project isn't about glorifying pain. It's about embracing our journeys, the resilience we foster through our struggles. We get to control how we share that narrative. Amina leaned forward. What if we designate themes for each part of the publication? Something cohesive that can guide our voices so they don't drown each other out. Inspired, Maya felt brightness seep back into the conversation. That's brilliant! Each section can act like a chapter, focused on a key element of our experiences, identity, struggle, healing. They began to brainstorm, building an outline filled with color and emotion, but one thought gnawed at Maya. What if their enthusiasm clashed with individual fears? If stories started colliding, would they hold back? Weeks of hesitance couldn't derail this momentum. She could not let fear anchor her creativity or theirs. The conversation flowed, laughter and moments of tension punctuating the room. They exchanged ideas and vulnerabilities alike, each contribution layering onto the last, a whirlwind of voices coalescing into a chorus that began to sound like their collective truth. Yet, with every shared story, Maya felt the weight of responsibility intensify. What if their brave truths left them exposed? What if, in the process of sharing, they inadvertently harvested shame instead of strength? As the meeting approached its conclusion, Maya recognized the urgency pulsing beneath their exchange. She needed to harness this energy and set boundaries that honored their experiences. Before we leave today, let's agree to a pact. We'll support one another through this process. If anyone feels uncomfortable, we pause. Our vulnerability must feel safe first. Head nodding in agreement, they all committed to this essential guidance. But Maya could not quell the insidious feeling rising within her. Could she fulfill this promise herself? Leaving the cafe, the weight of the day lingered in the back of her mind like an impending storm. She had facilitated openness among her peers, yet she now faced her own fear of inadequacy more starkly than ever. How would she ensure her own story harmonized with theirs? In the days ahead, she would have to confront these hidden doubts. The opening of their collective vulnerability had sparked something in her, but now she needed to test her own limits. It was time to truly face her fears behind the pages she intended to fill. As she stood at the threshold of the cafe, her resolve solidified. The moment of truth lingered just ahead. She needed to dig deep and discover whether she would embrace her story as fully as she championed the others. With that thought in her mind, she took a confident stride forward, uncertain but determined. What awaited Maya in that exploration could reshape not only her narrative but the impact of their entire publication. The haunting question remained. Would she rise to this challenge, revealing the depths of her story, or would the weight of fear and self-doubt anchor her down? The days following their meeting at the cafe blurred together, each moment filled with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. Maya found herself grappling daily with the weight of her own narrative, a story she had long tucked away beneath layers of fear. Each time she sat down to write, inspiration waged war against self-doubt. The more she tried to articulate her experiences, the more elusive clarity became. On one particularly quiet afternoon, as she curled up in her favorite nook with a journal, the empty pages seemed to mock her determination. What did her story even look like? The glossy surface of the zine's future felt oppressive, its potential pressing heavily against her chest. Maya closed her eyes, allowing herself a fragile moment of vulnerability. Memories cascaded through her mind, confrontations with her fears, dreams deferred, and moments of profound realization. The elusive essence of her identity lay tangled within them, a series of snapshots waiting for the right lens to reveal their true depth. Maybe I need to confront something raw, she whispered to herself. It was a soothing notion, but realization quickly set in. Confronting pain meant acknowledging it, and that opened the floodgates to emotions she had long buried. In search of grounding, Maya decided to take a walk, letting the rhythmic pounding of her feet against the pavement map out her thoughts. Fresh air filled her lungs, invigorating her spirit as she strolled through the local park, vibrant with the laughter of children and the rustle of leaves. Yet, amidst the joy surrounding her, a discomfort festered within, a reminder that joy didn't always align with the struggles she faced. As she passed a shaded grove, she noticed an elderly woman sitting on a bench, her hands working deftly to weave intricate patterns with strands of vibrant yarn. Maya paused, drawn to the woman's focus and the beauty of her craft. "That's beautiful," she offered, her voice breaking slightly the serene cocoon. The woman looked up, eyes sparkling with a kind of wisdom. "Thank you. I believe each thread tells a story, and when woven together, they can create something beautiful." Maya's heart raced at the simple truth, an analogy illuminating the potential of her own narrative. What if her story, with all its imperfections and knots, could create something beautiful? This interaction sparked an internal revelation. Her vulnerability didn't leave her exposed, it made her relatable, a part of a greater tapestry. With new resolve, she returned home, her mind racing. She grabbed her journal and allowed the words to flow, not worrying about polish or perfection. Instead, she focused on rawness, on the fears of not being enough, and the shame she had carried. Each line bore witness to her struggle, her triumphs, and everything in between. This was her truth, unfiltered. Over the following nights, she continued to write, channeling the stories of her friends' discussions and her own personal experiences. What emerged was a collection raw in its honesty and rich in its diversity, an authentic reflection of who she truly was, reflecting not just shadows but also light. But as she penned these truths, unease slithered back into her thoughts. Could she truly expose herself in this way, especially when her community's stories interwove so closely with her own? The fear of sharing her vulnerabilities alongside her friends terrified her. What if they didn't resonate? A sudden conflict loomed, one that threatened to unravel the authenticity she had just begun to embrace. That realization struck hard, and Maya paused, forcing herself to ask the harder questions. Why had she come this far, if not to confront her own fears? Wasn't the very essence of their project rooted in the courage to trust each other? As dawn broke over the horizon, a flicker of determination ignited within her. She would bring her raw drafts to the next meeting. It was time to face the warm embrace of collective vulnerability, even if it exposed her frayed edges. With her heart pounding in anticipation, she felt ready to step deeper into the unknown, not just as a creator but as a brave participant in her own life narrative. The moment of truth approached, a chance to foster an authentic connection among her peers, and she could not help but wonder how they would receive her story. But just as newfound courage began to take root, the thought consumed her. Would the mosaic they were creating fracture under the strain of such honesty? Or would it emerge, whole and powerful, ready to challenge the world? Maya could only hope for the latter as she prepared herself for the upcoming meeting. The scene was set, the players were in place, and a new realm of connection beckoned on the horizon. What would happen when the mask came off and the full weight of their raw truths fell into the open air together? Maya awoke with a tangle of nerves coiling in her stomach. Today was the day. The air in her apartment felt thick, the anticipation of the impending meeting pressing down on her like a weighty blanket. She glanced at her journal strewn across the table, pages filled yet untested, words weighted with both honesty and doubt. Dressed and ready, she paced the modest confines of her living space, contemplating the fragments of stories she had woven together. The raw drafts clutched tightly in her hand resembled a lifebuoy, a desperate grasp at something that could either uplift her or drag her deeper. Exposing her truth, she realized, was not merely about vulnerability. It was an invitation to be seen, judged, or potentially rejected. With a deep breath, she stepped outside, the sunlight kissing her skin like a promise. As she approached the cafe where the group gathered, the familiar buzz of conversation washed over her. Laughter mingled with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee, filling the air with a sense of comfort. Yet comfort felt foreign now. She was acutely aware of the uncertainty drumming in her chest. Seated at a table with her peers, she noted their animated expressions, eyes bright with curiosity about the project. But each face also mirrored her own fears. Would they understand the depth of her experiences? Maya's heart raced as she prepared to unveil her pieces of narrative. She could sense the collective energy in the room, charged with their unspoken anxieties and aspirations. "Hey everyone, I've been thinking about our journey," Maya began, her voice quivering yet resolute. "And I've put together some raw drafts that reflect where we are, or at least where I stand." The moment was electric, an electric mix of hope and apprehension. As she passed the papers around, her mind spiraled back into those moments of doubt, the inadequacies threatening to suffocate the courage she had mustered. What if her stories faltered, leaving them confused or distant? The question lurked like a shadow, whispering condemnation. The group read in silence, their brows furrowing or lifting with each line. Maya's breath hitched as she watched their reactions. Interest ignited in some, while others appeared contemplative, absorbed in her words. Finally, Mikey, the de facto leader, looked up, his eyes softening with understanding. "Maya, this is powerful. You've bared your soul here, and it's beautiful." The warmth in his tone ignited a flicker of something within her. Was it validation, or merely the relief that came with expressing herself? But as the meeting progressed, the inevitable emerged. A question cropped up, an unsettling confrontation. What about boundaries? Where do our stories intersect? Karina's voice quivered, her concern palpable. It stirred the collective anxiety in the room. Would sharing individual truths entwine their lives in unmanageable ways? Would it lead to a fracture in the very bonds they sought to strengthen? Maya felt her heart drop. Here lay the conflict she had feared. Her voice trembled as she responded, "I think it's essential to honor our stories, but we also need to be mindful of how closely they're linked." She wrestled with the thought of pulling back, of forsaking parts of her truth to keep the peace. Maya took a breath, pushing through the tension gnawing at her gut. It wasn't enough to simply present her truth. She had to advocate for the space to tell it without censure. "I believe that facing our intricacies can bring us closer. We must navigate this together. If we shy away today, how will we progress?" That statement hung in the air, each word laced with a humility that contrasted against the looming fear. In this moment, she was not just a storyteller, but a challenger of unspoken norms. The room buzzed with thoughts, intriguing discussions igniting around the importance of sharing rather than concealing their truths. As the meeting wrapped up, Maya realized she had summoned a shift, not just in her approach to storytelling but within herself, a commitment to honor her authentic narrative. Yet as she left the cafe, doubts lingered. What if, in pursuing this honesty, she inadvertently ignited discord among her peers? The weight of possibility bore down on her once more. Each step she took echoed a question that refused to relent. Would the delicate balance they sought shatter under the intensity of their truths? Or would it forge a deeper connection, fortified against the vulnerabilities they dared to reveal? Maya pushed through the door of the cafe, her resolve crystallizing even as uncertainties danced like shadows at the edges of her consciousness. With a new flame of determination ignited within her, she had to prepare for the next stage of their journey, a confrontation that would challenge both the fabric of their budding camaraderie and her own capacity for radical honesty. The next meeting would demand more than just stories. It would require their steadfast commitment to each other, authenticity at its rawest, and perhaps their greatest test yet. The air crackled with anticipation as Maya took a deep breath, stepping into the community center for their next meeting. The room buzzed with conversation as familiar faces greeted her, but there was an unspoken tension hanging between them. Today would require more than just sharing stories. It would demand vulnerability at its core and a collective commitment to embrace the complexities of their narratives. As Maya settled into her seat, she felt a surge of determination. This meeting was not just about her anymore. It was about their collective strength, the tapestry they were weaving together from threads of pain, resilience, and empowerment. She had expressed her fears before the group, and now she needed to uphold her commitment to navigating those intricacies with grace and authenticity. "Thank you all for coming today," Maya began, her voice steady despite the racing pulse in her chest. As we dive deeper into our stories, I want to remember that vulnerability is a two-way street. We have to honor our own truths while respecting the journeys of others. I believe it's important we create a safe space for open dialogue, especially around where our stories intersect. Elena nodded, her expression reflecting solidarity. We need to support each other and be mindful of the fears each of us holds, she chimed in. This is about trust. If we can't be honest here, we risk what we aim to share in this zine. It has to be real. The conversation flowed as they explored the boundaries surrounding their narratives. Jorge spoke, reflecting on the weight of his background and how it blended with his aspirations. Amina introduced her experiences with identity, expressing the fears tied tightly to how others perceived her. As each individual shared, Maya could feel the veil of doubt beginning to lift, allowing a sense of connection to flourish in the space. With every voice contributing to the discussion, Maya recognized a dawning realization. The very act of sharing their truths fortified their bond, not weakened it. Each story, flawed and raw, echoed through the room, reverberating with universal themes that painted the human experience. Then, as the atmosphere shifted, Maya sensed they were approaching a pivotal moment. Can we each read a section of our stories today? She proposed, her heart pounding. I think it's important we listen to one another to understand how our experiences weave together. The group exchanged tentative glances, but then Mikey spoke up. I think that could really bring our themes to life. Let's do it. With newfound courage, they each selected excerpts from their drafts, hearts laid bare as they took turns sharing their words. The atmosphere thickened with emotion, laughter punctuating their stories while silence enveloped the heavier moments. As Maya listened to her peers express their truths, a feeling of deep connection and validation filled her soul. They were not alone in their struggles. Each voice harmonized to create a powerful narrative tapestry that emerged from their vulnerabilities. When it was her turn, she rose, the weight of her confession resting heavily on her soul. But as she began to speak, the eyes of her friends locked onto her, a silent assurance that this was a safe haven. I've often felt like I had to hide who I am, she admitted, her voice shaky but growing stronger. This project is forcing me to confront my fears, to embrace the full story of my heritage and how it shapes my art. As she relayed her experience, she felt their unwavering support, a circle of strength that uplifted her. For the first time, speaking her truth felt liberating rather than terrifying. When the last story was shared, the group allowed silence to envelop them, contemplating the weight of what had been said. Maya spoke again, her voice calm and assured. Every one of us has given a piece of ourselves today, and it has only reinforced the strength we hold together. I am proud of each of you for being here, for being real. As they wrapped up the meeting, the atmosphere shifted from anxiety to a palpable sense of pride. They had forged a bond rooted in authenticity, recognizing that their narratives intertwined through shared experiences. Every fear, every joy, and every struggle now felt like threads woven into a vibrant quilt of resilience. In the days following the meeting, an energy of momentum propelled Maya forward. They embarked on the nitty-gritty of crafting the zine, prioritizing each person's truth, while ensuring that the collective message resonated louder than any individual voice. Through their collaboration, fear gradually morphed into confidence, allowing Maya to discover a newfound belief in herself as both an artist and a leader. She had not just shared her story, she had embraced community and learned the beauty of intertwining her journey with others. As the zine began to take shape, Maya felt both anticipation and satisfaction swell within her. The deadline loomed ahead, but instead of feeling overwhelmed, there was clarity and purpose. They were not just artists aiming to showcase their work, they were storytellers inviting others into their experiences, boldly facing the complexities of their identities. Finally, the day of the zine launch arrived. As Maya stood in the center of the room, surrounded by her peers, she felt a sense of accomplishment spring forth. The air buzzed with excitement. Anticipation hung thick as guests filled the seats, eager to witness the unveiling of their collective narrative. As topics of identity and intersectionality flowed through the discussions of the night, Maya relished in the moment. This was not just an event, it embodied the transformation they had all undergone. She had conquered not only the fears that had once shackled her, but had advocated for the voices of her friends, creating a platform for their stories to soar. With satisfaction radiating from within, Maya stepped back and watched as the audience flipped through the pages of their zine, eyes wide in appreciation. It was a celebration of authenticity, a testament to the power of storytelling, and a moment filled with genuine pride. Looking back at her journey, she recognized the arc of growth that had brought her to this point. No longer trapped in the confines of societal expectation, she had transformed into a confident advocate for her heritage, a leader in her community, and a voice carrying stories of resilience that needed to be heard. This moment was not just an achievement, it was a promise fulfilled, a celebration that knit together their histories, and a powerful testament to how stories, when shared, could illuminate their truth and inspire others. With those thoughts lingering, Maya stood tall, her heart swelling with pride for herself, for Elena, for Grace, and for every voice that added a thread to this beautiful tapestry of shared experience. She had done it, and the world was now richer for it. Now, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and comment your reactions and theories about this powerful conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Your support is crucial in spreading these powerful narratives.